and it's broadcasting. So I'm just checking the channel on the YouTube. And yes, it looks like we are already online. So let's start our virtual meeting, I would say. Kerry, it is so nice to meet you. My guest today is Kerry Hallard, the CEO of Global Sourcing Association UK, and this is the 191 number of episode of BSS with No Secrets podcast. So welcome to my show.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much for having me. Good to see you, Victor.
Actually, Kerry, I wanted to start this meeting with completely different story, but you have forwarded me very nice document, and I would like to quote one thing. And it says like that: well, it happened. The pandemic that scientists predicted, authors wrote about, and films brought to life, countries ground to a halt. People panicked and went crazy for a while. Zooming became a way of a life. Do you know what it is?
Do I know what it is? Yeah. So obviously that's the forward for our manifesto, and there's an extra sentence in a different version of that manifesto which says, "And governments shook a money tree," which also is pretty relevant to it all. But yeah, it was crazy. Everybody knows that the sentence used all the time is unprecedented times. It's a statement overused for me now. But the one thing for me about all of this is how well our industry responded. So any of the commentary that I make is how proud I am of the global technology and business services industry and how well it actually helped companies and governments not just keep the lights on, but really carry on delivering in the most difficult times, the most adverse conditions. So yes, I think we did incredibly well, and we should all give ourselves a big pat on the back because we were essential, and it's good at last to be recognised. And the importance of us to be recognised as predominantly essential workers delivering essential services. We did that, and we did it incredibly well.
But what I wanted to say is actually to congratulate this, because I am monitoring the work of various associations and industry organizations all around the world. And I think you are the only one who have created this kind of a document. This is 24 pages, which is very well structured with a lot of I would say interesting comments and views. I just received it from you before our conversation, but already I am quite positively surprised with the content of this manifesto. Whose idea it was actually to create this document?
Yeah, so that's come directly from us at GSA and the GSA Council. So it started off as my initiative, but I've got a council of 20 industry experts that are currently working with me. And at the association in the UK, we represent the interests of major buyers, enterprise buyers, service providers of every size and entity, and also the advisor community. So our council represents that broad community, and everybody got involved to help make that manifesto a reality. But further to that, what you'll expect from us very shortly is a full response document. So we have gone out to our entire membership base and asked them for case studies and examples of what they have done for their customers, or what they as enterprise customers have done themselves to help get through COVID-19. And the responses we've had have been phenomenal. So expect a lot longer, a lot bigger, much more detailed report coming from the GSA as to what the overall UK's response was. And I'm pretty certain that there are, and I know there are because I've been speaking to associations around the world, is that we're pooling that together for a global view as to how well the industry has responded globally, because it is a global industry. And if you look at the UK footprint and the way that the UK delivers its services, then we use a hugely global footprint, whether that's working with Poland, working with Malaysia, working with India. And it is the teams across the world that have pulled out the stops to ensure that they actually deliver to their customers wherever they are in the world, be that UK, United States, wherever. It's been a really, really, really positive global team effort, I think.
Okay, thank you for this. And definitely, yes, the industry is present everywhere, but you are located in UK. So let's maybe focus on the UK. Can you share some of your thoughts how UK sector responded to COVID-19?
Yeah, so we responded incredibly well. We didn't make technology workers essential workers, so they carried on being in the lockdown and working predominantly from home. Obviously, it's a very different story if you look at what actually happened in Malaysia, the Philippines, or India. But I think our stats show that 80% of workers were working from home within the first 2 weeks of the lockdown. Our research also shows that trust in partnerships increased during the lockdown. So we did some research to look at what were your trust levels across your partnerships pre-COVID and to what are they actually now in the midst of COVID. And pre-COVID, it was 6.4 out of 10. Today, it's gone up to 7.9 out of 10, which is a phenomenal increase. And obviously, we've dug down to actually ask, why is that? And I think it's just been the way that everyone has been, we're in this together. It is a shock. Nobody really knows what's going on. It is a mass panic. But let's pull our sleeves up and let's just make sure we get things going. We won't look at the contract. We won't look at what the service level agreement is. We will just make sure we can do the best we possibly can. So we've seen phenomenal examples of employees staying in hotels away from their loved ones just so that they can deliver the work they need to work if they're not able to work from home to deliver the services. And everyone's been hugely grateful for that sort of response and that sort of collaboration and that sort of transparency. So I think that's hugely encouraging that that's actually happened. And I think it's really cemented relationships in a completely different way that will stay cemented in that way moving forward.
But does it mean that this is a huge opportunity for building new outsourcing relationships? Because it looks like that if this trust has risen, so now it looks like actually outsourcing industry should use this opportunity and to encourage people into building new relationships between the potential clients and outsourcing new types of processes, new elements of the jobs.
You've read my manifesto. You definitely have read it, because exactly what it says in there is not only should we be really proud and celebrate how well we responded, but we should be looking at using this as an opportunity to slightly reposition the industry and maybe get rid of some of the baggage and negativity that certainly the British media has sometimes applied to the world of outsourcing, but more so to see our industry as being absolutely critical to companies and governments' restart strategies around the world. And I truly believe it is. So, technology, digital transformations, they accelerated at a rate of knots during COVID. And I think companies have realized that these technologies work. Projects that have been sort of like, I want to do this, over the next 5 years, I'm going to implement something, have actually been implemented almost overnight. So I think the appetite for companies to actually do more digital transformations, more innovative projects much quicker is going to happen. So again, we've surveyed our membership base, and the feedback we've had is that there will not be an increase in reshoring, there will not be an increase in insourcing, there will be an increase in projects, but contracts are going to be shorter. So that's the main changes we're seeing, is there will be more, but they're likely to be shorter in length. So yeah, very exciting opportunity for our sector.
You mentioned digitalization. Does it mean that this also includes robotic process automation and this area? So more robotization, more automation, which will be coming into the outsourcing world, into the shared services world?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was already a significant trend, and that has escalated during COVID. It was the only way to actually deliver some customer service support was to automate and use bots and things like that. Yeah, we know there's an issue with companies being able to take a strategic and holistic view towards their automation. But I think because they've escalated their product and category projects in automation, and that has delivered that they will start looking at making it a more strategic play. So one of the many work streams that we've launched at the GSA is a work stream focused on getting to enterprise-wide automation. And we truly believe that over the course of the next 12 months, that is going to become a reality. And we see that automation is front and center of the service provider 2.0 model. So I think service providers need to change, they need to adapt, and they need to bring automation in much more holistically themselves. And I think that should be central to the way that they deliver services to clients and bring new clients on board, is offering an automate first strategy and approach.
And how about cybersecurity? Because I need to share with you some of the thoughts which I have after talking to some businesses in here in Poland, that because of moving work to home, to make it like a more remote type of work, a lot of companies realize that, okay, it is not a problem to have an internet access, to have an access virtually to the applications, to the systems, but then they realized as well that it may not be as secure environment at our homes as we thought in the very beginning. Is the cybersecurity something what the BSS industry in UK is also putting attention on, thinking about that? Maybe here are some changes which are also going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think virtually the very first webinar we did when we entered lockdown featured cybersecurity and the increased threats of cybersecurity in this environment. So, yeah, I think people relaxed some of their process rules because they had to, and I think they've now realised that you can't have people working from home seeing confidential data on their screen when they've got other people walking around that should have no rights to see that data. How do you keep that secure on home laptops, on mobile devices, and all those sort of things? So absolutely, this has been brought to the fore now that we're not panicking. Holistic, strategic approaches to cybersecurity are underway, and of course there is, that there is a load of very sophisticated cyber terrorists that are working on some really dastardly plots at the moment, and we've seen some really big organizations have their entire customer databases hijacked or penetrated. EasyJet being just one example in the last couple of weeks, where all their customer data got penetrated. So cybersecurity really high up organizations' agenda. I don't think it's ever going to come down, to be honest.
Yeah, this is a very, very important topic, and every time we need to be very much focused on the security of the business, especially that there are a lot of activities which are in line with this, what is currently happening just outside the door. Like in US, there were a lot of manifests on the streets, and I have read yesterday an article that there is a new phishing campaign based on the wording Black Lives Matter. Yeah, so people are using even something what you can see every day on the media just to hunt for your data, hunt for accessing the business environment. But anyway, let's leave it behind us. And I have one additional question related to some forecasts. We are now in the middle of the year, so 6 months gone. I believe that you, as well as myself and many other managers, did some forecasts for the year 2020 in the very beginning of this year. I was even communicating it during our gala in January, what were our expectations that this year will bring us. But we never could expect this, what happened with the COVID-19. What were your expectations about the growth, about the changes, about the moves in the BSS industry for the year 2020 in January, and what they are now? are they changed or they remained unchanged?
Oh, there's been so much change, yeah, for sure. So I think we were predicting 4 to 5% growth across the industry, and the nature of that growth was looking at more technology investments. But we've done a transition. You know, we no longer look at this as necessarily technology or business services. We looked at it as very much being technology enabled business service delivery. So it's hard to sort of like position where that growth was coming. But now I don't completely agree with the stats that have been issued by some of the analyst firms. So I think it is HFS said they're expecting a decline across technology and business services of between 11 and 12%, and Gartner are predicting a decline of about 8%, I believe. At the moment, talking to our membership base, of course, there have been some losers. There have been some industries that have been completely and utterly mothballed, like the tourism and travel industry, just as one example. But then there have been lots of industries that have absolutely escalated. So whether you look at e-commerce, whether you look at logistics, healthcare, government, you know, spending across some sectors has just skyrocketed. So on the whole, most of our members are expecting a slight decline. But not a decline of close to 10%. We're hoping and guesstimating a decline of about 3 to 4%. But then growth happening again in 2021.
I believe I would agree with that. I guess that this year would be very flat when it comes to the growth. And rather companies will focus on the stabilization of the business, rather looking for these opportunities when it comes to the security of business, automation of the business, and so on and so on. And even perhaps the new approach when it comes to the offices. I don't know how it is in the UK, but in Poland there is a lot of rumor about this. What will happen with the offices now? If the operation centers will be the same, if the employees will come back to the centers, or maybe there will be some other models combining the work in the offices, the work in the home, or maybe even adding to the co-working areas and creating such an environment. How does it look like in UK?
God, it's really, yeah, I would not like to be in real estate at the moment. I tell you. So, the GSA, we were based in central London and had offices in Soho. Had those offices for the last 20 years, and we have now rescinded the lease and given the property back to our landlord, and we are going to be permanently working from home. It just became so apparent to us that we could do absolutely everything we needed to do in a working from home environment, and the team preferred it. So it was a collective decision. Let's save that cost and let's just continue working from home. And I know there's a number of companies that have obviously already applied exactly the same. I know that if you speak to the vast majority of my colleagues and fellow professionals, very few of them believe they will go back to working full-time 9 to 5 from an office. They don't want to. We're doing some research at the moment, which is a wellness study. And that is going to be doing a really, really deep dive into people's mental state, about what's happened during COVID, but certainly about how they feel about working from home and ever going back into an office environment. Now, some people, and this is an analogy that one of my council members from Aviva made, but I love it. He said, he's a dog, he's a cat. He's a cat. He's a cat, and he just likes his own space, and he likes a degree of isolation and do his own thing. But he recognises that other people are dogs, and they want to be around people and interacting and busy with other people all the time. So working from home isn't for everyone, for sure. But there are a lot of people that feel so worried about the use of public transport. And so relieved not to be commuting an hour and a half every day to get into work, and realizing that their well-being has increased because they don't have the stress of the travel, the commute, the time, and they've got more family time. Once you've tasted that, why will you want to necessarily go back to that slog of working 9 to 5 from an office with an hour and a half commute either side? And I think one of the biggest positives that has come from COVID-19 is the fact that employers are all looking at the wellness of their employees in a completely different way now. And I don't think that will ever go back to how it was. So I think the employee voice has got to be heard. And if the employee, in the vast majority of cases, what I'm hearing is if the employee says they want to carry on working from home and their job enables them to work from home, and obviously most office-based positions in the business services sector can work from home, then employers should not and cannot really force their employees to go back into the office, certainly not on a full-time basis. So there'll be a lot of hybrid working, I believe. So massive, massive changes there.
But if you will force people to work from home, that probably will need to be reflected in the labor law. At least it is like that in Poland, because this is completely different type of work. We need to have in mind the security of our employees and so on and so on. So that probably will require the countries where such preferences of work are implemented to look from completely different angle on the labor law.
Yeah, I think I can't give an exact example, but I think we changed things in legislation here virtually overnight to enable some of these things to actually happen.
Overnight?
Well, not overnight, but in about 2 weeks' time. Legislation has happened incredibly quickly. We moved to e-voting in Parliament incredibly quickly. So, you know, those things that have been dramatic changes. So I don't think... I think we've also got to bear in mind that there are a lot of individuals that haven't got a good working from home environment. So, you know, if you're in a house share and basically, you know, all your flatmates or, you know, housemates are also in the same situation working from home, then everyone's working from home from their bedrooms. Not everybody's got proper desks set up, you know, proper chairs, you know, that there is a whole wellness piece to look at as to whether the home environment is the right environment. And there are a lot of people that don't like working from home. But I think this COVID scenario has forced everybody to look at, can I force people back into an office? Unless there's a real requirement, you know, I don't think you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's now combine this remote work with the potential moves all around the world where to set up new locations for the BPOs or shared services, because there were already some rumors, maybe some gossips, maybe it was true, maybe it was just some analysis, that Europe actually did much better moving the work into the remote model than the Asian destinations did. And there were some talks about that in Asia there were some troubles with electricity all around the day, that there were some troubles with accessing internet, or the homes were not ready actually to move the work to the remote model. Where in Europe, so far, we didn't hear any, let's say, bigger issues with moving that. Does it mean that Europe may become now more popular to be considered as the BPO SSC destination to set up new operation centers than it was so far?
It's a really interesting question, and again, it's something that we've been actually asking our membership about. So on the whole, I've not received any negativity about how well Asia responded to COVID-19. Certainly, it is true that the infrastructure and environment for home working is different in countries like India than Poland, but the research we've got is where things have moved to the work from home environment. Productivity in those countries is actually productivity in the delivery of those services has actually increased. So because it's removed that whole commute aspect, people have been able to put more time into their jobs, and productivity where it has been delivered from home has increased. But I do think the stats for working from home were certainly slower. Yeah, for sure. What else would I say? I don't think, and yeah, I was really quite concerned about a wholesale call to reshore. just like Trump has now obviously taken a very protectionist approach in America. We had a few articles in the British media looking at, is this going to be the end of offshoring, and is everything going to come back onshore? And no, it's not. In fact, I think what we're going to see is even more blended global footprints, as really big multinational organizations, really want to build their resilience. And the only way to build your resilience if you're a global company is actually have pockets of service delivery around the world. So I think we're going to see more of that, and we're not going to see a wholesale repatriation of services back onshore in the UK. Now, obviously, if we look at the Central and Eastern European zone, it was already growing. It was already doing incredibly well. And I think that positive trajectory is definitely going to continue.
Yeah, there was a slight slowdown within the last 2 years, but we have also noticed that it was a normal thing. After a big peak up, then there should be a little bit slowdown, but then again it's going up. And I had a call like 2 weeks ago, maybe, with some colleagues from Ukraine, that they are becoming very open for the Western European and Scandinavian investments. Of course, Ukraine is still outside of the European Union, but it is much cheaper. It has a lot of resources and good language skills and so on and so on. So they are hungry for this kind of business and already communicated quite openly, I would say.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, at the end of the day, companies are doing their restart strategies, and what they really need is access to the best talent quickly. And, that does mean looking outside of the UK and looking globally.
So then let's touch this point a little more deeper. I had a very interesting talk like a week ago about the virtual teams for the SSCs. It means that perhaps now the new model of SSCs will be not like having people in one office, in one city, in one country, but just hiring people. Doesn't matter from where, from Singapore, Nepal, Australia, and just creating such virtual teams. What is your opinion on that? Do you think this is something what may work?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we've put in our service provider 2.0 model is a huge increase in the use of gig workers. So I think the gig economy was going to, but now more than ever is going to really take off. Anybody can work from home in the hours that they want to work, accessing skilled labour all around the world. It's a no-brainer. It is a no-brainer, and it's a massive game changer for the entire sector. And anybody that doesn't look at that seriously is being foolhardy, I'd say.
But this is also a huge challenge from the management point of view, because if you've got such virtual teams spread it all around the world, to keep the same level of service, to keep the same level of training, even for people, to make sure that they have exactly the same knowledge, or they know what to do. I can imagine that for HR teams and training teams or coaching teams, it is a huge challenge.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. But loads of people have been onboarded during COVID-19, and they found ways to make these things work. So if you want to access, really enthusiastic, talented individuals quickly that are disciplined, want to work flexible hours, which is what the millennials really want to do. They want to be working for themselves, working in their own environments, in whichever way that they want. Then you've got to find a way to harness that talent and bring it into your business. And there's some really cool platforms that have been developed that enable just that, enable the onboarding. So I spoke to a company the other day called Limitless. I hadn't come across them before, but they were being talked about by the head of customer service for Sage, which is an accountancy software program. And they were just talking about how great it was. And I was just sort of like, I don't understand how a big business to business brand could be using gig workers to deliver support on how to use a really complex accountancy package. But they're doing it, So, a gig started off as being, right, it's going to be consumer. It's for simple things like taxis or food or food deliveries. No, it's not. It's being used in really serious business-to-business environments now, and very successfully. So it's something we all need to start entertaining. And obviously then, you know, the delivery of business services and the future of shared service centres is going to take a different form, for sure.
So one more question about the training or trainings area. In GSA, you are also providing a lot of training sessions, certification programs, and so on and so on. Do you think that now the new business reality will be like that most of the trainings will be carried on virtually, and those one-to-one sessions, or like in the school rooms, or however we call it, they will just be gone?
Well, we have completely remodeled the delivery of our professional development. So we are delivering it all remotely. It's online webinars, and the way that we provided our qualifications anyway were always the submission of written papers that actually look at a challenge, an outsourcing or shared service challenge that an organisation was facing. So the assessment isn't massively different. But yeah, it's all moved on. It's all moved online for us. What we have done is massively reduce the cost as a result, because the infrastructure required, the time taken by the tutors to travel and stay overnight in London and all those sort of things have disappeared. So, you know, training has become more accessible around the world and has become cheaper. So yeah, we've seen a dramatic change in the way that we're delivering, and I can see nothing but positivity for that. So we create small cohorts, and you know, we have small team meetings where everybody feels a little bit like they're in a classroom and discussing with their peers without actually everybody having to travel to London. And that's what used to have to happen, whether you were living in Glasgow, whether you were based in Manchester. Everybody had to travel down to London to participate in our training courses. Wow, you know, you can be in Bangladesh, you can be in Tokyo, and now attend those training courses. So.
But does it mean that people actually are now more interested in such education than it was before, or it remains on the same level?
So our qualifications are really focused about strategic sourcing and how to manage your strategic sourcing programs, or how to deliver your clients' strategic sourcing programs. So what we've actually found is there's an increased appetite at the moment, because companies, our research shows that the best performing companies and the companies that survived COVID-19 the best actually have a strategic sourcing function. Now, for us at the GSA, a strategic sourcing function is a team of highly talented professionals, highly skilled professionals, and they understand the business and the needs of the business. They understand the operations of the business. They understand finance. They understand technology, and they understand procurement. And they actually transcend all of those previously siloed areas of a business to look at how they find good, innovative partners to help bring into the business to drive value for that business. So there are a lot of companies that are looking to do strategic sourcing. And again, our research shows that the trend towards strategic sourcing is still on the increase despite COVID. In fact, it's accelerating as a result of COVID. So there are a lot of individuals that are looking at skilling themselves in any aspect of strategic sourcing. So yeah, it's on the increase. It's on the increase for us, because within our courses we have things, or qualifications, we have things like how do you govern your relationships, you know, how do you manage the performance of your relationships. So you know, there's some really nice meaty but soft subjects that are relevant for both those working on the delivery side of things, but also those that are working on the buy side of things. So yeah, seeing an increase in demand. Also, sadly, there are people that are actually using this opportunity to reskill themselves, because there are people that have been displaced, they have lost their jobs, they were furloughed, are furloughed, and therefore they're looking at making sure they're in the best shape possible for when the market picks back up.
And just one last question about the trainings. Are they offered within GSA Association only, or you are also open for the attendees who are not the members of your association?
Right. So one of the things that we've put in our manifesto is that everything is open to absolutely everybody. So we continue to be a member association, absolutely, but we've put all of our best practice and our main best practice is encompassed within a 160-page book called the Global Strategic Sourcing Standard. We're making that freely available to absolutely everybody in the world because we think it's really important that as companies are entering, organizations, governments are entering their restart strategies, we want them to be able to do it in the best way possible. And if they are going to be using strategic sourcing more, then let them do it to best practice. So we're making all of our best practice freely available to anybody around the world, but we're also making our qualifications open to anybody. Now, they're not free. There is a fee for qualifications and professional development, but as I say, because it's gone digital, it's decreased in price. But best practice is free, and we're encouraging anybody to get involved in all of the work streams that we're running. So we're running work streams on contracting models. New contracting models are seen as being really, really key for companies' restart strategies. So we've got a team of professionals that are looking through what those contracting models might look like. We've got a work stream that looks at how do you move to enterprise-wide automation. We've got work streams that are focused on how you move to the strategic sourcing function. So we've got a whole host of different work streams and a whole calendar of events that absolutely everybody is welcome to attend, view, participate in, share, drive, whatever level of involvement anybody wants. We're open, definitely.
Okay, thank you for this. I have two final questions, one business and one private. I will start with the business. If you could share with our audience, with our listeners, with our viewers, where to look for this manifesto and where to look for more information about the GSA.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is www. Do you still say that? I don't think so, do you? But anyway, GSA-UK.com. And our manifesto is available on the front page. If you subscribe, there's a little subscribe button in the top right-hand corner. If you subscribe to our website, you will then have access to a whole host of the content and the Global Strategic Sourcing Standard. Any issues, then email admin@gsa-uk.com and any member of the team will be happy to help you out. And there's one other thing that I think would be really interesting to hopefully your viewers, Victor, is the GSA Partner Platform. So the GSA Partner Platform is like booking.com for hotels, like TripAdvisor, like in the UK we use a company called checkertrade.com. It's like that, and it basically is a platform for all service providers, software development companies to promote their marketings, to put their profile in, and then their customers to review them and say how good they are. So we see this as being a really, really important tool to help our members find partners easily, but to know that those partners are good, trusted organizations because they can read the reviews of those organizations online. So again, the GSA Partner Platform is on our website, and that's free for any company to upload their profile and start running a new business.
Thank you. We will share the links in the description of this episode of the podcast as well, so it will allow people to find this, everything what you said in much easier way. And now the private question. Where do you plan your holidays after moving out of the lockdown in the home?
Oh gosh, I want to go somewhere really exotic, like the Maldives or something, which is going to be safe and luxurious. But the reality is I've got a place in Portugal on the Algarve. I think that's going to be destination number one for me. So because Portugal is opening its doors, it's welcoming the Brits in, and well, I think it's welcoming everybody in for sure. But they're doing a specific air bridge between Portugal and the UK, which means we could go there and not have to quarantine when we come back, which is highly attractive, obviously. So yes, but I'm not booking any flights anytime soon, unfortunately.
I believe once the flights are available, Portugal is a great place to go.
Well, I've got a hotel there, so Tavira House Hotel. Everybody get down there. That's the best place to be.
Thank you, Kerry, very much. It was a great 40 minutes talk. I don't even know when those 40 minutes went, but thank you for all of the updates. And those were very interesting topics which you mentioned. And I will finish with this, what I started. This is so great to see that the industry and associations create these kind of manifestos when something happens globally, when something happens what has impact on the industry, not necessarily in one country, not necessarily in one region, but around the world. And definitely those hints and tips which you cover within this manifesto is a great thing to follow.
Okay, well, thank you. And do expect in the next week a full response, global response to COVID-19. So there'll be some big announcements coming out soon.
I already look forward to that. So once you have it, just drop a line to me and I will make sure to make it popular across Poland as well.
Excellent.
Thank you very much for today.
All right, thank you. Nice seeing
Thanks.
you. Take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.